Hi everyone, I am off to go and see the result of a part 3 test over in St Helens today, so perfect time, as I usually do in these situations, strap a camera on and say what I see about my driving. Now, we're going to be looking at today signalling. Now, I could get away without signalling here, but I am going to signal now. I don't think you'll be able to see it with any of the cameras. You'll probably be able to see it now. But the first van, not the one that's just waited, but the first van at the top of the hill, that one was coming out of that junction to my left-hand side. So therefore, that van needed to know which way I was going. Now, I'm going to go ahead here. Effectively, it is a right turn. But why don't we right signal in that situation? Well, it could be misleading. People could think that I am going to go off and park on that right-hand side. So, a couple of little bits straight from the off. Apologies about the brightness of my coat as well. I did try and buy something that was going to clash with the colour of my car as much as I could. No, it didn't, but it does. It's pretty cold today. I am going to do a right turn here. Signals, don't forget, are not in distance, but in time. Now, could I get away with not signalling at this point? Well, no, not really, because the information that I'm turning right needs to be taken in by the vehicles opposite. You could, in theory, sit here without a signal, and when you see the traffic, if you are really, really good, when you see the traffic stop at the side, then put the signal on. You need your signal on for approximately 6 to 8 seconds, so it's not in distance. If you're a driving instructor, whether it be many years ago when you passed or whether you're taking lessons, if your driving instructor said you should signal at a particular distance, it's absolute toss. It's not. It changes massively dependent. Now, I'll go on to it a little bit more about there. I could have just maybe just left it and then just put it on maybe 6 to 8 seconds before I was going to go. That would have been enough time for the oncoming cars to see what I'm doing and assess what they've got to do. However, it's not always correct. If you've got a 2-lane carriageway and there's a right turn at a particular set of lights, you need your right signal on much sooner than that. And it's for this reason, I'll try and explain it out here. If I was turning right into the new flats, a right signal on nice and early allows people from the back to work out that I'm doing a right turn and not get stuck in behind me, because occasionally there were a couple of cars, if this Fiesta in front was doing a right turn into the new flats as well, we would probably block the flow of this lane. So that's a situation where you do need to put a signal on extra early. And as long as it's not misleading, it could be done 100 yards away. But that also depends on speed. Now, I'm just watching the black one. It is signalling left. Brilliant. Therefore, that signal left, it was super useful for me to know that they weren't going to come out. Now, I know not everyone thinks in that manner. They'll just go, "Ooh, my lane, my priority." Yeah, it doesn't matter. But to decent drivers, it's a useful little thing there. So don't think just because that wasn't a left turn only, but don't think just because it's a left turn only, you don't have to signal. Now, that car, that told us a decent story. If you were watching that as well as listening to me talk, it signaled, it took it off. What does that say? It communicates a lot, if I was honest, that they're obviously looking for somewhere. So it allows us then just to keep a little bit distance back. Will I need to signal to go around the bus when it parks? Yes, but I'm actually delaying it because the Peugeot is catching me up. But the habitual signallers would probably have put the signal on and maybe interrupted the flow of the Peugeot. Should the Peugeot be breaking the speed limit? No. Am I judge and juror over that? No. But all I'm interested in, don't forget, is ultimate flow. Now, when the Peugeot went past, did I really need to signal? Well, the distance of those vehicles behind was quite large, but I'm of the way of thinking that, look, someone much further back might only just be looking at my bright green car. They might be dazzled by the reflection of my new coat, and they might not have seen the bus. And people do, and this is one of the reasons why I do signal in certain situations. It's because I understand that people will not be looking at the van in front, they'll be looking just at the back of this blue Audi. So therefore, what I will do on occasions, if vehicles are probably within overtaking range, if they could be starting to think about an overtake, I still will signal to go around the bus. It's as simple as that. Now, signal here, I'm turning right onto the motorway. What am I doing? Well, I'm adding to my signal as well by positioning next to a pocket. I'm more likely to have my signal recognised and someone let me in if I'm here. Watch. We're not talking about a Mercedes as well. They've dropped off. Thank you. And there's an important part to that as well. Ask. Now grow your space from the Audi in front because we're a little bit close, especially in these wet conditions. So there's an important part about that to ask. Asking is really important, and that's exactly what a signal is all about. Okie dokie. So, should we be signalling right to go onto the motorway? Yes. Didn't really matter too much at this particular point, because who does the right signal help? Does it help vehicles behind much? A little bit. If you think about what the driver of this Mercedes has done now, I've moved lanes. They've got into the left because they probably realise I'm doing a right turn and they're just flowing. It's all fine, it's all good. But the right signal here at this point, because I know it gets pretty busy just round the corner, and sometimes I have to slow a little bit to then go into the correct lane. It's not so bad today, but that right signal there just warns people behind what's what. My left signal here, who does it help? Well, it usually helps when you're left signalling to leave a roundabout. It usually helps the cars coming onto the roundabout from the exit that you're going into. But here it doesn't, because it's the other side of the motorway. It really helps people around. Now I'm just conscious of this speeding Peugeot. Really, where should I be? Up behind the van, but having already spotted the speeding Peugeot come past me on the previous road, am I going to take that particular place, that where I should be? No. Give myself acceleration, space and room. Signal's important here to deter the van from coming past me as well. Now I was just watching the van closely there. That's a common thing that I see people do all the time. They'll emerge early and then accelerate past someone. Think about how poor that is with that van. I'm not heading on the motorway, but think about what that driver just did. It's not very good. Do I need a left signal to come off here? No. It's a separate lane. Doesn't help anyone. Look at that van driver behind now as well. Terrible driving. It's just lazy rubbishness. In any case, you deal with it. Here, I'm watching him. We've got some roadworks. We've got to join. A signal is beneficial, even though, honestly, people from this road behind should understand that vehicles are going to be coming out. So sometimes you have to signal for idiots. I'm not going to signal to come back in because it should be a given and I wasn't affecting anyone. Glad that guy's gone a different way. In any case, here's what it is. Interesting situation with a lorry in lane 2, continuing ahead. Probably going to be a little bit slower than the other traffic, so it's no issues to me, the lorry driver's doing that, but it does also give me a few warning signs, because rarely at a set of lights is it the correct thing to do. In any case, could have a super fast lorry unladen. He is getting on with it, to be fair. And they've come back in. They may have just been caught out in that lane overtaking, don't forget, and then the lights change. So yes, there's nothing wrong with being a pessimist, but allow the situation to be fixed. The lorry driver's signal, though, was it an ask? Was it, can I? Just for example, I am going to overtake with a little bit slower traffic in front. 1, 2, 3 minimum before I'm going out. Wherever possible, that's what you should be doing. Now, there was just a sign there that was a little bit flattened. We may or may not have some lane closures up ahead. So I can see the sign down on the right hand side now as well. So should I really need a signal to come in? No. But again, same sort of process as I said before with the bus. People may only just be looking at the back of the vehicle that they're following, in other words, myself, therefore that signal can help. Notice I'm growing the gap. Let's just get some windscreen cleared. Do I need any other signal here? In other words, brake lights. That's another thing. I'm just turning my heated seat off, warm enough. Yes, it's one thing that people do forget about the importance of brake lights. I did do my infamous video where I drove home without signalling. That actually shows you, most of the time, if you're a decent driver, or if there's decent drivers around, most of the time it shows us that the signal's less important. It's more important to put a properly timed signal on. If you mistime a signal, it can be dangerous. If you don't put one on, it generally just reduces flow for everyone else. But if you understand that, you can sort of get where I'm coming from with it as well, where, because I am going to signal 1, 2, 3. Out we go. Yeah, if you understand that process that I'm talking about there, because of the level that I work at and observe at, I'm sure you can understand that people not signalling doesn't really inconvenience me very much. I'll just deal with it. So the need for a signal is effectively for the poor road users. It's the truth. Okay, so we're doing 60 miles an hour. Am I going to signal to come back? It depends. The one behind isn't catching at a rate, but I am just going to put one on just for the weather conditions. In fact, this van's slowed down a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have even come back in there. They drifted slightly to the left-hand side of the lane. Are they engrossed in something else? No. I am again going to signal left to come back in because of my already in and out. This one behind the Ford may very well have been thinking, oh, what's the driver of that Focus doing? In the end, no, they've just tucked in behind. So I'm not constantly yes or no, if you notice. I'm constantly reassessing and seeing whether that signal is actually beneficial. The first time, didn't really get to talk about it loads as well. Another factor for me to signal coming back in was the lorry and the weather conditions, because I was moving back in probably a little close to the lorry. I'm signalling with my brake lights here. Does it matter if people don't right signal? No, because I'm always going to arrive at decision point when someone's not coming round. So that's why on the roundabouts, if people don't signal, it doesn't affect me very much because I've already tweaked my approach for it to not be important. If you're arriving at decision point at roundabouts, and what I mean by decision point is the vehicle's coming round, are they going to come round in front of me or are they going to leave and allow me to go? If you're at decision point at the time you need to make that decision, you're in too close. Ideally, we need to be further away from the roundabout when there's a car at decision point, therefore their signal becomes a little irrelevant. Also, if you are arriving at that decision point, it becomes reactive, and that's where you'll make mistakes as well. Okay. Which way am I going to go? Should we go up the steep hill at Moss Bank? I've got a lower speed limit coming up. Don't need to signal. The Volkswagen Golf is big distance back. What I mean by signal is don't forget brake lights as well. I'm just going to turn down the sensitivity of my wipers and screen a little clear again. Think about what we said about the lorry driver before. There's another lorry up at the lights. I am going to just pop it across. The lorry driver behind may very well be in a little bit of trouble with the speed camera van. It's seeing sense. So yeah, nothing wrong with being out and using lane 2 in this situation. Just a little observation, the lorry that we've got to the left hand side has got cameras for mirrors. Still trying to borrow a car that has cameras for mirrors so we can do a little bit of a explore with their usefulness. But one thing that Simon on the podcast did bring up, which is a good valid point about these as well, is that you can't make assessments on what the driver is doing because you can't see him. There's a few little things that I need to explore with these cameras for mirrors, but we'll leave that for another time. Let's have a little look to see what's what. The lorry's quite quick away, but the Audi is clearing. So I'm using my acceleration. Am I going to signal to move back in? Yes, just in case the Golf wants to accelerate a little bit quicker. If they wanted to go before it changed back to a 60 limit, which they did a little bit, it wasn't an issue, it wasn't a problem. I'm just aware of my acceleration as well, just to make certain that I'm not going to leave them hanging out there, because just as I was going to say, their lane discipline before and their driving was pretty good. Apart from obviously them just going a little soon before the speed limit. But from my perspective, it's not very good. It'd be quite nitpicky to the general public. However, the police would still potentially pull you for something like that. In any case, their signal to come back in was useful. No issues with that. I'm going to take the next left. Downhill, slippy conditions, Notice how early I am giving the car behind a chance, and with my brake lights, to know that I'm doing this turn. And look what it enabled both of those vehicles behind to do. Perfect example, thinking for other people with your signals, not just putting them on habitually. I know I've done a video on signalling habitually, and there's a little bit of a crossover with this one, however, slightly different bits that we're talking about. Okay, we have, I was going to go up the hill in Mossbank, but I'm not. I'm just going to go right at this roundabout. Interesting little roundabout. So I am going to turn right, so a right signal is beneficial. I'm just waiting till my wheel's straight before I did that there. So therefore I'm not faffing with it again when I'm doing any steering. Interesting little layout. Not going to say much about it. The reapplication of the signal is important. And the left signal, it is important for these coming out as well. If they can see, talk about the guy and the dog in a minute. If they can see the side repeaters on my vehicle, they may very well alter their approach. So that left signal to leave, generally, it was for the green bus. It was also for the guy and the dog. But it was also for that one, I think it was a Citroen, yeah, it's the Citroen that's behind us. It was also for that one as well. What signal did the guy and the dog clearly give us? They were waiting. Where were they waiting? Well, they were waiting in the middle of the hatched area. So you've got to pick up on this information really quickly. And a signal is much more than just a flashing amber light. So downhill again, into a roundabout, I am just going to tell this one quite early. I'm going to slow early because, again, I don't want to arrive at decision point. BMW's gone, Fiesta's coming round, silver BMW, wasn't signalling, did do as they turn. It's a common problem with people. They put the use of these signals as they move. It's because they grip the wheel, stick a finger out and signal as they do it. Awful. That's one of the big downsides to people crossing the hands after they've passed, and vice versa to that, passing the wheel round or the pull-push method stops you from doing that. Right signal for the right turn at the roundabout again. Don't want to arrive at decision point, so I could see the black one coming. I'm looking after it, was able to creep. Now, anyone else that needs a bit of attention? No, left signal, not going to bother. Didn't need it at that particular point. Usually you do need the left signal to leave. However, in that scenario, no. Roundabout and turning right. Talk about why you should try and do that occasionally as well. Yeah, cool, we're all good. A signal to leave a mini roundabout is generally not required because of the steering involved. That goes back to what I was just saying about the pull-push as well. If you don't signal, you inconvenience someone. If you don't steer, you crash. But yeah, why should you try and not signal on occasions? Well, it just forces your observations to be a little bit higher level. If you can find a little situation where you absolutely are certain that you don't need it, brilliant. Brake lights, we've talked about them, but I've just seen them down at the bottom. This is an advisory speed limit, or it used to be. I don't know where the sign's gone, might have missed it. It was an advisory speed limit for 20, and that's because of the narrowing and the potential for bigger, wider vehicles coming the other way. So we sorted that out, not a problem. Anything else happening? Nope. So I'm quite close to St. Helens Test Centre. When people are signalling like that as well, it's not that's the determining factor of risk. Don't forget, you've also got to assess how the van is slowing down, where the van is slowing down, and the likelihood of it turning in front of you. I am going to turn left at the lights. An early signal, it's for the slip lane, it's not for the turn, or it's not for the stop line or the turn at this point. So that's exactly what I was talking about with the van before. That one, you could see by its position, oh, just cancelled the signal early there, just for the learner coming out of the side entrance. It lessens the chance of a misread, but I was still always ready and watching the body language of that learner vehicle to see whether they'd misinterpreted my signal coming round the corner. Back to that van was a perfect example of what I was talking about a little before, where you see the right signal, you know people are doing a turn, but the important information that you're picking up is the body language, how fast they're moving, where they're traveling to, and when they are likely to turn. So please, 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 please don't rely on these little flashy orange lights. People are rubbish at them as well, they really are. They signal habitually, they signal as they steer, they don't use them as they're designed as a can I or excuse me, they just go, I'm doing this. So honestly, people get het up about them. They are not as important as you think if your standards are good enough. Hope that helps. Keep safe, everyone, and I'll see you soon.